Hi and welcome to Literary Hype. I am Stephanie, your Literary Hype Woman, and I am so excited about what I get to share with you right now. So excited. I have been trying to get this author for well over a year. Like, even before I started this channel, I was trying to get this author on my news show to talk about his book, and I finally got it to happen for Literary Hype at Fan Expo Chicago. Zachary Levi. Yes. He is an actor who is known for a lot of projects that we're not talking about. We are only talking about this beautiful book. It is so freaking good, and y'all need to check it out. But so without any further ado, here's my conversation with Zachary Levi about radical love. My first question is unbook related, because it is the most common question I get after posting our photo up from C2E2, where I gave you a piggyback. You said yes to that rather quickly. How often does that happen that people ask you to give them a piggyback, or you get on your back?
Well, people have asked quite often for me to give them a piggyback. But see, here's the thing. I'm an equal opportunist, meaning if I'm going to allow one person to do something, I think I should give everybody that same opportunity. But that gets real sketchy because I don't have the back strength to not shatter all of my vertebrae, and I don't want anybody to feel bad because all of a sudden I'm like assessing them and being like, oh, you weigh too much, so you don't get a piggyback. So I just had to make a kind of standard rule. I don't give anybody piggybacks. But if people want to give me a piggyback and they think you can handle whatever this weight is, then let's go. And I said, are you sure? You're like, I'm sure. So then I got a piggyback.
I mean, you were a lot lighter than I was expecting.
Well,
so
thanks.
Bravo.
I've been watching my schoolgirl figure.
Awesome. So your book, Radical Love, has been out for a little over a year now.
Yeah, something like that.
What has the response been like for you, seeing how people are handling what you had to say?
It's been great. There have been so many people that have either found me here at conventions or have contacted me like via social media, my direct messages or whatever, or comments on posts I've made that have all been so supportive and kind and effusive and so many stories that people are sharing about how much it's helped them or healed them or been a part of their healing or blessed their life in some way. People feeling seen and heard in their own mental health journey for the first time in their lives. And I definitely knew, the intent was to reach people. The intent was to help people. I didn't even realize just how many people are legitimately going through the exact same type of journey, even when the circumstances of your journey are almost entirely different. Different mom, different dad, different town, different siblings, or different job or industry that you work in, and yet we all still suffer from the same types of stuff over and over again, same types of anxieties and depressions and OCDs, whatever it is. And so I think that it's been very incredible to just see all that kind of come to fruition, and I've been so grateful that it's helped as many people as it's helped.
What was the hardest part for you in the actual writing of this book?
Oh, well, I mean, the hardest part of the writing was the writing. I mean, thank God I had a great co-writer named Tanner Colby, who really understood, because I've never written a book in my life. I have a hard enough time reading, sitting down and writing them. And so Tanner, as a writer, was such an incredible and such needed collaborator in helping to kind of bring form to what was my story. And then once that form was brought to it all, and the editing process together was a much easier lift at that point, And then I don't know. I mean, also I would say that it's hard knowing what to share and what not to share. What part of my story did I need to share with the world in order to get these points across? And also because there's a lot of other people that are a part of that journey. My parents, my siblings, my other friends or family or ex-wife or whatever. And it's like, I want to navigate this. I want to be honest about my journey, but I'm also not trying to screw up anybody else's life. I'm not trying to, make it more difficult for other people. And so that was a hard part because I really felt a great responsibility to, only that this would only be blessing people and not harming them. And so it's a balance, and you find that balance. But I think we struck a good one.
Is there a story or something that you really wanted to put in the book that just didn't fit and it didn't make it?
None that I can think of offhand. And maybe at the time there was some stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor that I felt like, maybe I don't know. I feel like this is probably still worth it. But through the editing process, you kind of get to the point where you feel the flow of it all. Like, why are we spending too long talking about this or harping on that or whatever? And so by the end of the editing process, I felt very good about where we were. So I don't really miss anything. I think everything's there that needs to be there.
And you read your own audiobook, which was incredible to listen to.
Thanks.
What was that process like, reading these very vulnerable, emotional words and putting it on tape with your voice?
It was gnarly. It was. I mean, editing the book, I was already crying a lot. It's very cathartic. I mean, to be talking about these things as vulnerably as, I talk about them in the book, and things that are still clearly, like, the more I'd start crying. I'd be getting to a passage, editing a passage, and I'd be crying, or even doing the audiobook. There were moments where I actually did cry, and and some of that emotion still seeps in there. Some of it we just had to do another take because I was just straight up crying, so it wasn't going to be that. But all of those moments, whether through reading it or saying it, when those tears came, it was just yet another reminder of, I have yet to go deeper. I need to go deeper in whatever this is. I need to heal this more. And I'm looking forward to healing it more. But interesting that it still has a rawness or a freshness where it's still bringing me to a tear, And some of that isn't tears of like, the woe, most of it, all of it, they're not the woe is me tears as much as the tears of, reflecting on a mom that was just a woman who was trying to do her best, and that she's no longer here, and that's sad. It's sad that she never had the opportunity to really love herself, and then the world never met the version of my mom that did love herself, and what an amazing woman that would have been, and all of these incredible aspects of who she was would have been the healthy versions of that and not the unhealthy versions. So, like, those things still, they're emotional. But reading the book, yeah, I mean, it was an interesting process for sure.
And it's called Radical Love. In a nutshell, what does radical love mean to you?
I think the best definition of love that I've ever heard up to this point is to love is to will the good of the other. And that doesn't mean like them. It doesn't mean condone their behavior. It doesn't mean allow for that behavior or whatever their behavior may be in your own life. It means they don't have boundaries or any of that. It says, I recognize that they're a human being, but they could be an abuser of me. They could have traumatized me. They could be traumatizing other people. They could just be kind of a not great human being or behaving in monstrous ways. All of these things are important to look at and to assess, and again, to have boundaries, whatever you need to do. But we should always still be, hopefully, seeing the child of God in that person, in whatever state they're in their life, and want their good, and want that child to ultimately be loved, and so that they're not behaving in the ways that they're behaving anymore. And I think that's, fortunately and unfortunately, that's pretty fucking radical, because, I mean, it's like Jesus love, kind of, it's like when Jesus was saying, hey, to love people that love you, is it really love? It's not hard. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about loving your enemy and praying for your persecutor. Like, that's fucking hard. It's hard. And people don't like it, and we don't like it. We don't like talking about it. And we all feel like, yeah, totally, we should do that. But also, fuck these people over here because they're doing this, that, or the other. And it's like, let's stop these people doing these bad things, but let's not be just vilifying these people to the point where we're making them monsters in our own minds, because there's no redemption there. There's nothing beyond that point, and we have come to that place. And I think it's hard, but that's why it's radical. That's why it's. And again, I think part of the reason why we all struggle with it is because people think, well, if I love this person, that means I have to like them and I have to let them walk all over me. And it's like, no, nothing could be farther from the truth. You don't have to like them at all. Love is not graduated like. It's not like, I don't just like this person, I love them. It's like, no. It means that you want their good. Even if it has nothing to do with you and you're never in their life again, you just want their good. And you want it deeply. You want it on a soul level. You see that they're a child of God wherever they're at, and you want their good.
And I love that you touched on the faith aspect of it, because that is one thing I did really love about this book, is that you are so open about your faith.
Yeah.
Rainn Wilson recently said that there's an anti-Christian bias in Hollywood. How did it feel for you to be putting yourself out there and your faith out there like this when it's kind of not well received lately?
I mean, I've always pretty boldly lived whatever version of my faith I had at any given point. It's evolved greatly from when my faith started. Really, as a little boy, I've always had immense faith. I can't explain why, but I even as a little kid, like I knew that there was a God for sure, and that it loved me, and that I was called to go love people. Like all of those things I've known since I was a little kid. And so I've always pretty much lived that out. Now, I don't disagree with Rainn that it's not exactly like the thing everybody loves. It's like if you go and say, hey, I'm spiritual, particularly if you're a Christian or whatever, there's a lot of like, oh, these, the eye rolls or whatever it is. I mean, sure, I've experienced some of that. I don't think I've ever lost a job. I don't think so. I don't think I've ever lost a job because I've been open about my faith. And also, maybe I could have been more open about my faith if I felt more comfortable in all of it. But I don't know. In my journey, I don't feel like I've been hurt or blacklisted per se. But I definitely think that, anytime that you're representing something, and faith is a big part of this because it represents God. Almost any faith, right, represents, okay, that there is this bigger thing. But what comes with that is accountability. And I think people really bristle at accountability. People don't like thinking that they're accountable to anything other than themselves. It doesn't matter what your religion is or whatever, there's all this ultimate accountability back to source, whether it's Jesus or the God of the Israelites or Muhammad or Allah or or the Hindu gods or whatever it is. It's like there's something bigger than me, and I got to be humble with that thing. I got to be accountable to that. And I just think a lot of people in Hollywood, or really just the world in general, they don't like that. They don't like the idea of being accountable to something bigger than them. But I do. I don't understand how to live a life where you're not humbled by this insane, incredible fucking universe that we're a part of, and that we're all these teeny little specks, these teeny little specks that are infinitely valuable and entirely unimportant. We are not that important, and yet we're so loved, and extensions of love. But we gotta take this whole that we're somehow the center of the universe or whatever it is, or no, reduce yourself back to being humble and recognizing that you are a piece of all of this in a larger way, and be open to that and be used by that. And then you don't, I think there's a much more richer experience to be gained through all of that.
Are you planning on writing another book in the future?
Yeah, I now that I've done it once, and I feel like we did a good job, I could be down to doing it again. I just don't know what it would be necessarily. But once I figure that out, then yeah, I'd be open to it.
Are there any books that you're hyped about?
Right now?
Yeah.
No, honestly, I haven't. I'm so bad. Like I said, I barely read books, so I need to read more. But no, I don't know.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks again to Zachary for taking time out of his very busy convention schedule. This was right before he left the entire convention that he took the time at his table to talk to me about Radical Love and what it's such a good book, y'all. So if you have not read this yet, the links are down below so you can get that. I also highly recommend the audiobook. He does read the audiobook, so if you love his voice, listen to the audiobook. So good, so worth your time. The links to get those are down below, as well as where to find him on social media if you have any problems with that. I mean, he's Zachary Levi, you should be able to find him on your own, but I will help you out. And while you're down that side of the video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and turn on those notifications by clicking on that little bell so you can find out what the next author conversation is as soon as it goes live. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.